A question I often get asked is, do you eat less, or should I, the asker, eat less on days that I don't train? As a coach, I say no, you should not reduce the amount that you eat on non-training days, and here's why. Quite simply, if you're asking that question, it means to me that you're considering the energy cost of the activity, but not the associated recovery costs from that activity upon cessation. All right, so follow along with me on my silly little chart that I drew here. So in the red, we have training volume, and in the blue, we have recovery demands. I put there kilocalories. You can also contextualize that as time. So as you can see, as our training volume rapidly approaches maximum recoverable, the energy demands associated with that volume do not increase linearly. Let's say you did 3 sets of 10 squats, and that was 200 calories, right? Then the next week you did 3 sets of 10. That's not going to cost you 300 calories. It might cost you 350 or 400. That 50% increase in volume might be 2x the energy demands. And I'm not saying that's precisely what it is. I'm just throwing those numbers out to illustrate the principle at work here. So at a certain point, at our current level of fitness, we hit our maximum recoverable volume, right? So our red line, our volume line, crests, and we start getting below that red dotted line, which is our current fitness level, right? We experience fatigue, and we need to recover. Now, if you notice, the blue line is still going up at that point. Why? Because there's all kinds of stuff going on in the background that you might not take into consideration when you ask the question. You have to consider, folks, in the context of exercise, it's not just a matter of energy expenditure for the activity. You also have to take into account environmental factors and, more importantly, damage accrued from the act of performing the exercise. Okay, so during the recovery process, our energy demands continue to climb until they too peak and gradually start to go down. Okay? Recovery continues, and we eventually, if we do everything right, we at a minimum return to baseline, but that's not what we're going for here. We are trying to be better than we were before, which is super compensation. So now we can handle more volume, heavier loads, whatever the case may be, and that red line eclipses the previous level. Well, what do you think is going to happen next if this trend continues? When we follow this trend to the right and look at our bigger, stronger, faster self, what we see is, well, holy crap. Now we've super compensated. Now we're significantly bigger, stronger, and faster. But now our energy demands are way more than they were before. A race car uses more fuel than a Honda Civic because it has more horsepower. An MRAP uses more fuel than a Honda Civic because it's a much bigger vehicle. Again, I want to remind you folks, the effort and the energy demands do not increase linearly. The faster, bigger, stronger, more endurant athlete you become, the more you're going to need to fuel yourself in order to continue to push that athletic development further and further. It's why, like, you know, an Eddie Hall or a Brian Shaw, like a 400-pound, 6'8" strongman, has to eat 10,000 calories a day. That's an absurd amount for you or I. A world's strongest man competitor, though, is a freaking MRAP, and I'm just a Honda Civic. or whatever. So all that to say, not only should you expect continued higher energy demands after you complete your training, but you should also expect, if you did everything right and recovered properly, that the next time when you train harder, your energy demands will be more still. This is part of the reason why when I do my calorie and macro recommendations for either massing or diets, I do it by percentage of body weight so that it scales to the individual's new demands. So to get back to the original question, should you eat less on non-training days? I don't think so, but a definitive answer to that question all depends on how deep in the hole you dug yourself when you were training and how much you require in order to recover. And that's not a number that this video is going to give you. This video is just to get you thinking that it's probably more than you might suspect. Sometimes, folks, recovering from the exercise can be more costly than doing the exercise in the first place. Now, I'm not saying go and have a hog or cheat meal after you train because recovery is super costly, but just keep in mind that even though you aren't willfully doing them, things are going on behind the scenes. Fatigue accumulation, folks, is an ever-present danger, and what a lot of people call overtraining is actually just under-recovering. You can only train as much as you can recover, folks. Stay in the fight.